Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask Him to send peace and blessings on His beloved and our beloved Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This reading, we'll just do one of the books today, just jet lagged. I've been awake since 3 o'clock in the morning, so so we won't do the fiqh book, a bit too much for today. But the Adab al-Mu'asharat text, we're up to the section on etiquettes of being a guest. There's about 77 points on how to be a guest that Mawlana Ashraf Ali Thanawi has enumerated. So we'll read through maybe about a third of them today and then over the next 2 weeks inshallah. Number 13, meaning overall in terms of etiquette, and the first one from etiquettes of being a guest. If you're a guest and do not wish to eat, inform your host of this upon arrival. And Sheikh Ibrahim, Mufti Ibrahim, he mentions nowadays it is possible to make contact, either give a call or send a message in advance. Especially in the old days when this was written, when people traveling a long distance, they know that you're arriving, and you're staying at their place as well. So you see that there's two types of guests. One is the one that you just invited over for a tea or to meet up at their house. You're sort of like a guest. One is actually going to come and stay over as a relative, or somebody stays over at somebody's house. So if you're a guest and do not wish to eat, inform your host upon this host of this in the old days upon arrival immediately. The first thing you should do. In the old, they couldn't send an advance message. Whether the reason is that you have already eaten or are fasting, etc. If you wait to inform them after they have prepared or ordered food, it will go to waste. If you are staying in someone's home for a few days, you should not accept a dinner invitation from anyone else without your host's permission. Similarly, a long-term guest should let his host know if he's going out of the house, whether he will go, so that the host is not inconvenienced searching for his guest at dinner time. So we've had situations here in this mosque, just outside this Ora mosque, where we had like an international guest and 2 people have become the host, and then there's a fight outside on the door of the masjid for diyafa. Muslims are known for their ikram, for hospitality, but but not for each other. Like they fight each other. To kiss the Hajar Aswad, people bash each other. To do the mustahab thing, they do haram. But anyway, similarly, a long-term guest should let his host know if he's going out at the house and where he will go. So I just read that. If you need something from somebody, ask them as soon as you meet with them. Some people act as though they have simply come to greet the person. Then after some time passed, they bring up the need. This causes great distress to the person being asked. When you speak to someone, do it from in front of them, not from behind them, as this causes confusion. Some items are for public use. After using such an item, return it to its place. And even in houses, there might be something that's just known that this is for everybody to use. In the masjid, obviously, there are things that are for public use. On occasion, when staying at someone's house, they may lay out bedding or seating in a place not usually used for that. To avoid inconvenience to others, it is best to clear such bedding away when not in use. Do not read any letter that is not addressed to you. So you're staying in somebody's house, or you've entered somebody's house, then there's some mail there and you're just walking past the mail, what's going on. Do not read any letters that is not addressed to you, whether it is being written in your presence or not. And Sheikh Ibrahim, an update, the same goes for text messages and emails. Do not listen when people are leaving voice notes or messages on an answer phone for the same reason. So if someone has letters in front of him, do not look at them, as they may be something written that he wants to conceal, or he may not want who he's writing to be known, to be known. If your friend is invited for a meal, do not go with him. Do not crash parties, do not go with him, as the host may feel obliged to invite you to join them. This will cause a dilemma. For if you immediately accept, then you will eat the food without the host's pleasure, and if you decline, then you may dishonor the host. Avoid inconveniencing your friend's host from the start by not tagging along. Like, you're not invited, all right? Like, you're not invited, so don't impose upon the person, because he might have a limited amount of food, he might be specific requirements and whatever. Don't assume. If you need something from a person and you've already asked them, remind them of the full details of the request when you repeat it. Do not assume that they will remember everything from the first time you asked. If asking by email, be sure to attach your original message by way of reminding them. Sheikh Ibrahim, he is bringing it to the 21st century, mashallah. Some people cough to attract the attention of people they want to speak to, but this is disturbing and ill-mannered. It is preferable for them to simply start speaking and say what they need. If the other person is busy, one should remain inconspicuous until they're free, to the extent that they're not even aware of their presence. As we said above, being aware of your presence can sometimes cause great difficulty or distraction. Once they are free, come forward and speak. Do not stop to greet or talk to somebody who is clearly rushing to get somewhere, as this can cause him to be delayed. When joining a gathering, make a point to shaking hands with every person seated, whether they're known to them or not. When joining a gathering, some make a point of shaking hands with every person seated, whether they are known to them or not. This wastes time and disturbs the proceedings. The preferred manner would be simply to greet the people you have come to visit, and others you may know, if it won't cause disruption. Because the gathering is the majlis going on and they start shaking hands, you're disturbing everybody. When visiting, if you have a request from the host, such as to attain some blessings from a pious scholar, like you visit one of the Salihin, one of the ulama, Rabbaniyun, like the ulama of the pious scholar, then make your request early so as not to give your host time to honor it. To give your host time to honor it. Avoid leaving until the last minute when everyone is leaving, as this is a busy time for your host and he is preoccupied with other things. He may forget, or you may cause stress by your timing. As he's busy seeing to his departing guests, it is improper to commit any such act that causes such difficulty to others. Also, when asking for blessed items, one should ensure these items are spare, or rather present an item and ask the scholar to utilize it for a short while to gain with. Sometimes people bring food, the sheikh to eat some and then take the rest. Tabarruk, and to take. So, like, if you want to do something like that, even if it takes, for example, like tahniq for baby, some pious person from Salihin to chew for the baby, like that. This is, or whatever it may be, but like do it, choose your timing properly. Sometimes people speak very loudly, or they speak in an extremely low tone that can barely be heard. Neither extreme is appropriate for communication, as misunderstanding or distractions may occur. Rather, speak every word with clear enunciation at a pleasant volume. Right. When speaking on just a footnote, when speaking on the phone in a public place, take care that your conversation is not causing any disturbance to others. One of the things I noticed, I was in overseas, I just came back, so I noticed generally, like, there's a guy in Tawaf who's next to me, and he's got his nishnat playing full volume. He's like a Urdu poem, and I said, like, I just tapped him. I said, bro, like, Pakistani, obviously. I said to him, I'm Pakistani for those who don't know, but I just tapped him and said, like, we're trying to make some zikr or something. You got your, whoever your natkha is, like, this is not the place for doing, but put headphones on, And this is the equivalent, and we're doing it in Tawaf. People, on trains, they play it on speaker, whatever they listen to. This is considered bad etiquette in trains and public spaces, but even there, it's even more so. So this is especially likely with noise. This is especially likely with noise-cancelling headphones, as the user becomes unaware of the volume of his own voice. Okay. So if you are, he's brought it into the 2020s. MashaAllah. One should listen attentively when being spoken to. If there's any doubt in the mind about what has been said, it should be clarified immediately with the speaker. Do not act based on what you think has been said, as this can cause issues. If you are given an instruction, let the person know as soon as you have finished the requested action, so that they are not left waiting. As a guest never interferes in the host's arrangements unless the host himself asks your help or gives you a task. If you are with someone older than you, do not do your own activity without his permission. So if you came together with someone, a senior, then you should. And he mentions here in the footnote, this is especially true of using your phones, going on social media, and so on. Once a foreign visitor was asked, when are you due to leave? He answered, whenever I'm commanded to. This kind of answer is not helpful, right? Like you guess, so like when are you leaving? You know, so I mean that might be sound, but like if a person's overstayed. So Mawlana Ashraf Ali Thanawi rahmatullah was known for being very straightforward in his tarbiyah, right? Like these advices seem like you can tell like he's like very direct, but he says at the beginning he asks forgiveness always from people, but he said, but if I don't tell you, you're never going to know. These Islamic etiquette, these are Islamic manners, right? So he said, if I don't tell you, you'll never understand. So I had to explicitly spell it out. Alhamdulillah, for our benefit. So this kind of answer is not helpful, as it does not give any information as to the status, needs, and length of stay. Response should include one's own intention wherever possible, even though these may be subject to change. In short, do not respond to any queries in a way which requires being asked again. A student of knowledge once asked his teacher for something to help with labor pains on behalf of somebody else. He was informed that if anybody makes worldly requests like this of him, he should make an excuse and decline, as it is disrespectful to his teacher to make such requests. A student once visited his former teacher as a guest. He had visited previously but had lodged somewhere else. But on this occasion, he intended to stay with his teacher. Unfortunately, he had not made that clear to his host, who assumed from previous experience that he would lodge elsewhere outside. So he did not prepare food for him. As a result, the student ordered food for himself. When this was discovered, he was reprimanded and told that in such a scenario, intentions and plans must be made known from the outset to avoid inconvenience to your host, especially when a previous precedent has been set. Generally in Australia, we don't have this, but overseas, like you go to the village or you go to a town or visit a relative, there's expectations. Right, so he's saying this should be articulated. These things should be articulated. We don't have that. We live in small houses generally, and then when we go visit, we organise our Airbnb and motel, hotel, whatever. Generally, this is how in current. In the old days, they didn't have these facilities, so they would have to make arrangements for accommodation, for food, etc. It is improper for a guest. I'll just finish this section. It is improper for a guest to speak of matters over which he has no right. For example, one guest tells another that the food is ready, but he has no right to that food. Right? So I mentioned the footnote. This is based on the principle that it is the host who owns the food, and therefore guests should not invite others. Right? So if it is known that the guest is expected to inform other guests of the food being prepared, then there is no harm. If it's already arranged like that, or there's an understanding, it's fine. But permission should be sought. We're talking about ownership of a thing. So this is, and a lot of our problems are because we don't know who owns what. Like when it comes especially to, on a larger scale, like inheritance, right? Like inheritance, like everything in the house, there's an owner of it. Like the fridge is owned by somebody. And you can say 50-50, right? There's some sort of an agreement known, but if it's something of value, meaning that you can sell it in the market, even if it's on Gumtree for $10, right? So it's got a monetary value. Then this is understood to be, this will be added in the miras, right? So it has to have an owner. A lot of our problems, like financial problems, because like especially when it comes to miras, is that nobody knows who owns. Everyone just sort of jointly owns everything. And it's unknown actually who the real Malik, the Malik is, the real owner is. Anyway, a guest once said to the last point, a guest once said to the host's servant, "Bring water." He was told, "Do not use the tone of an order. This is bad manners. Rather say, please bring me some water." And this is something, and I mentioned the footnote, always be polite and gracious to anyone who's assisting you, regardless of status. So please, thank you. And what's the other one? Please and thank you. These words, because we have them in our language, sometimes migrants don't translate these manners to their children. Right? Like, because one of the people that you're educating is children, you teach them these. So, this is experienced in teaching in Muslim schools. I'm telling my own experience, that Muslim kids are not taught these things because the parents don't say these things because it's not in their language. you understand the please and thank yous and the words of good etiquette in English? Those adab are not transmitted because their parents don't themselves use those words on a daily basis. Like it's because it's for language barrier. They might have their own words, but then they should be taught these words. It should please and thank you. So using the form of command, do this. Give me food. This is these type of you'll see this like in a lot of migrant. I mentioned it's not a Muslim problem; it's a migrant problem because they don't know, because the parent never heard the parents use those words. So that when they go out in society, they don't use those words, right? Because they never at home they don't use it. But they might use their own language words or whatever, but it doesn't 100% translate their language or whatever they speak at home doesn't translate outside. So he said, do not use the tone of an order. You don't have to use over the top. What do you call it? Roundabout. There's one alim came from Muhaddis from Pakistan. Now his stuff is published in Oxford and Muhaddis, and his stuff is published in Oxford and Cambridge. He contributes academically, and he said, why do you Australians use so much indirect words like third person? Like he was analysing our announcement in the mosque. It would be appreciated if all the brothers would, like we go in this, because please don't park here. Just say please. I said maybe we're trying to be respectful, not to be too direct. He said just say please. That's good manners. He goes, you guys use so many. He said use so many extra words. Like he was analysing he was analysing our announcements in our mosques, like the way we talked. Like he goes, you use so many extra words unnecessarily. Like you're not direct. Like you don't get to the point. You use unnecessary extra words. It would be appreciated if all the brothers could, this is just please don't park in front of the mosque. Please don't do it. Be direct, but be polite, but be direct as well. Anyway, it's just interesting. Like I was asking him advice from him about in madrasa teaching English. So when he was in it's a famous university in the US, Chicago. He was in Chicago anyway. So he was explaining to us how to teach English in madrasa to students so they can develop writing skills. So a very interesting person, mashallah. He writes under a pseudonym, another name. He showed me his writings, so he's, I don't want people to know who I am and stuff, but he writes under another name. But his stuff is published in like journals and stuff. Very, very, very interesting, very interesting alim. So anyway, just some people are very cognizant of language that is used. They're analysing, like they step away from a situation, they're analysing us. This type of guest is a person that stays, and the person has a haqq. Just remember this, that the someone's phone. The guest has a right. So when in fiqh and hadith literature talks about the guest, it's talking about the guest that's coming from out of town. So then the community is obliged. It's a community obligation that someone has to provide a lodging. And is to provide. Does anybody know how many days? 3 days and 1 day. 1 day or 3 days. That's haqq of the dayf. Yeah, 3 days is one is something. One is minimum. 3 is mustahab. But let's say 3 days. 3 days is right. According to others, it's 1 day is right. So it's a haqq that you have to. You can't just send him to a hotel. You got to provide. Or if you send him to a hotel, you have to make the arrangement. That is his haqq as a Muslim in the community, that the community and arranges not just accommodation, also his food as well, right? So this is something lost because in the modern world we don't have this. Now people come here to the mosque, someone have a fight with their wife and they come to the mosque, they become refugees and they come to the mosque to, So then, no, they don't have. Ummah Center has rules. So my father sends people come with their mattress and they to sleep in the corner of the masjid, but because there's rules and and safety things and so forth. Then it's a 21st century. There's a $50 hotels you can get. Go and go there. It's not to be because there's a fire hazard. There's so many issues. We're paranoid about. But some arrangement, the brothers should be helped. But the Jamaats come here. There's people in Etiquette come here, stay here. That's all. There's a procedure to that, and the place is protected and so forth. In those, they follow a routine, but someone randomly comes, and then just wants to stay in the masjid, and then they get upset. You're kicking me out of the house of Allah, and so forth. No, we're not kicking you out of the house of Allah. There's other arrangement in this community that you can make use of. Wallahu alam. Everybody in the masjid, like today people they impose on masjids more than the masjid is the capacity to take. Even Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu came to the masjid. Something happened between him and Fatima radiallahu anhu, and he came to the masjid. So this is an age-old, that's the place to go. He was lying in the masjid and he was sleeping on his shawl, right? And Ali radiallahu anhu, he rolled off the shawl onto the ground, so dust came on his body. So Rasulullah said, "Ijlis ya Abu Turab, sit up, O the father of the dust, Abu Turab." So there's a group that came later on, I think the Khawarij, they used that as an insult. They call Abu Turab. He said, "That's the most beloved name to me, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave me that nickname, Abu Turab, the father of the dust." Right? So maybe they're following that sunnah, like coming to the mosque corner. But as for the most of the etiquettes are related to people that go visit another person. And I was with one of my teachers. We went to Dandenong years ago. This was like 2001, if I remember correctly. And so we went to Imran's Roshan Fashion. So we went the Indian clothing shop. So he said, "We're going to go there and we'll have chai there." And I said, "Well, Mufti Saab, like I probably read this at the time." He said, "Mufti Saab, come on, like we can't just impose ourselves and he's going to make chai." No. हम वहाँ जाएंगे वो हमारे चाय बनाएंगे फिर वो हमारे घर आके हम उसके लिए चाय बनाएंगे. He said, "We're going to go there, we're going to make chai for him, he's going to make chai for us." And then he goes, and then when he comes to our house, we're going to make chai for him. But they have that relationship, so they can probably impose, I guess. But according to the book, it doesn't seem so. Wallahu alam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding and tawfiq to practice. Jazakumullah khairan.